morning. I'm going to get started with our first lesson for Vacation Bible School, 2 fish, 5 loaves, 1 Lord. Today we are talking about catching people, but before we get into that, I want you to stop and think about what it would look like if you were to go fishing. So if you're thinking about, okay, it's today I'm going fishing, what are you going to bring with you? I know for me personally, I'm going to need to bring my fishing pole, my tackle bag. Even if you haven't gone fishing, you can think about what it would look like for someone to go fishing. What sort of things would they need to bring? Sunscreen, something to get the fish's attention, whether that be a lure or some bait, something to put on that hook so the fish say, that looks really good over there. Now that you have that picture in your mind, I want you to stop, grab onto that picture, and I want you to think, what would I use to catch people? Now, I know some of your first thoughts might be, maybe a cheeseburger, some ice cream, that would get someone's attention, but not so much what would get someone to eat something, but what's going to want them to come closer to you. What would you, if you were at school or if you were on the playground and you saw someone else doing something, what would make you want to go over there and be near them and want to play with them and want to get to know them more? How are we going to do this in our church? How are we going to get our friends and our family to want to know more about Jesus and get to want to come to church and have that relationship with Christ? So I want you to stop and listen to this story. It's coming from the book of Luke. Sorry, I need to grab my Bible. We are in Luke chapter 5. So I'll give you guys a second to get there. And I want you to listen to this story and listen to how Jesus shows his power and listen to the influence that Jesus had on his disciples. Okay, we're in Luke 5, verse 10, but I'm going to kind of recap the story a little bit. So if you want to follow along, I'm going to kind of be skimming through the first part of this. So in the beginning of the story, Jesus is preaching to people on a beach. And he's there, and tons of people are coming to listen to Jesus because, he's Jesus. And it gets so many people that he decides that he needs something to stand on so that others are able to hear him and see him. So there's 2 boats nearby, and Jesus gets up on a boat. He's preaching like he does and being awesome. And then he decides that he wants to go out and fish. Now, we don't necessarily have in the Bible that he says, I want to go fishing. But he just simply tells Peter, go into the deep water and put your nets out. He didn't say, Peter, I know for sure this is the best fishing spot that there is. This is definitely going to be where you need to fish. He just asked Peter to do something. And Peter, and as the disciples were sometimes, they first doubted what Christ was asking them to do. Simon Peter even said, Master, we've been working hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let the nets down. And what happened then? They caught so many fish that the disciples had to have their friends come help them pull all the nets up because there were so many fish. And even more so, the boats started to sink. And they started to go down and down and down because it was so heavy with all the fish they have caught. How amazing is that? All day they've been fishing and trying to catch fish, and Jesus asked them to do it, and boom, there's the fish. But there's a more important part of this story. And when we see something in the Bible that Jesus says, we really need to listen to it because there's a lot of meaning behind the phrases and things that he says. So hopping over to our verse for today, he says, I'm starting this sentence. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the son of Zebedee, Simon's brothers. Then Jesus said to Simon, Don't be afraid, for now on you will catch men. So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. Now, it's a hard thing to do sometimes. Sometimes when you're trying to, as Jesus said, catch men or try to bring people to love and know God, what does that mean? It means that he is telling them to spread the word of the Lord. He is telling them to show God's love so that others may want to join the Christian community and also want to get to know Christ and to make him known in other places in the world. That's what he is asking the disciples to do. That is what he has always called them to do. So as we go through these lessons, and as today when you're putting together your activity for your homework, I want you to think about when you are putting them together. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but when you're doing that, when you go to use those, I want you to think about how you can show God's love while passing those out to others in the community. How you are showing God's love just making them, but what is the next step that you can take for those people, or even your friends or family members that you know are not believers? What can you do to help convince them or to show God's love and make them want to know more? That's our lesson for today, boys and girls. I hope you have a wonderful Monday.